1973 was the start of Kiss. Those first few months of finding the right musicians, the grueling rehearsals, inventing the characters, designing the makeup, those early crude costumes, finding their place in the New York City music scene and ending up being managed by Bill Aucoin and signing to the newly established Casablanca Records. Having recorded their debut album in December, they were feeling hopeful as to what the new year might bring them. Would 1974 be the year they reached the top? Or would it be the year that the hopes and dreams of Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley would collapse around them? We find out in episode 2 of We Got the Best, the story of Kiss. At the beginning of 1974, Kiss were already exhausted and they hadn't even yet begun. They had spent the previous year inventing themselves, the makeup, the characters, the promise of something louder and stranger than what rock music had been offering. They believed completely in what they were building, but belief on its own doesn't pay for gas or studio time or broken amplifiers, and it doesn't guarantee that anyone will listen. 1974 opens with Kiss still playing to half-filled rooms, still explaining themselves, still hearing laughter from the back of clubs before winning people over by the end of the night. They knew they were different. What they didn't know was whether different would be enough. So they leaned into the one thing they could control, how they presented themselves to the world. Photo sessions became more than promotion. They became declarations. Every shoot was a chance to say, this is who we are, even if the audience hadn't yet caught up. The stares grew harder, the makeup sharper, the posture more aggressive. They weren't asking to be accepted. They were daring people to reject them.
You know, I did one star and it looked really good, and I thought, that was a lot of work. I'm not doing 2 of those. But before that, I had, for a very short while, I had like Petey the dog from the Rascals, from the Little Rascals. I had a ring around my eye. And then I had the star, and early on, the president of the record company, for some reason, said, you know, you're kind of effeminate on stage and you should be more masculine. And I said, okay. And he said, you know, so, you know, I'm thinking about lumbering around on the stage, and I did like it looked like a raccoon. I did this bandit makeup, you know, just a black. I did that for about a month, and I went, no. I said, you know, my face, my decision, and went back to the star.
Behind those images, reality was far less glamorous. Money was tight, tempers flared, long days blurred together. Peter Criss, already married and older than the others, felt the weight differently. For him, this wasn't just ambition. It was risk, responsibility, adulthood colliding with rock and roll fantasy. The younger members could still frame failure as a setback, but Peter knew it would mean starting over.
Next thing I knew, my parents were driving me to the airport to catch a flight to Edmonton, Canada. Our album had yet to come out, but a musician I wasn't aware of, Mike Quattro, whose sister Susie was very popular in England, had canceled some dates in Canada, and Bill snagged them for us. Almost as soon as we landed in Canada, I realized that girls wanted to sleep with me, based on only one criterion. I was in a band. In addition to easy, random, non-stop sex, there were concerts to be played. The venues for those 3 shows were college cafeterias, and we didn't have our full arsenal of tricks along for the ride. Peter's drum riser stayed in New York, though Gene still breathed fire, and the stage, which on these days was hardly more than some folding tables pushed together, was wreathed in dry ice fog. Mike Quattro obviously had enough of a following to have those shows booked for him. And even though he couldn't have been that big, given the venues, people were confused when we took the stage each night. They had no idea who we were. Hard to blame them, since our album hadn't been released yet.
When the record was finished, we went to shoot the cover photo. Our image was extremely important to us, and we wanted to get it right. The record company had paired us up with Joel Brodsky, a well-respected rock photographer who had taken cover shots for dozens of acts, including Gladys Knight and the Pips, Carly Simon, and the Ohio Players. He was best known for the cover of The Doors' Strange Days, a surreal carnivalesque shot with a strong man and a midget. He had a studio in Midtown Manhattan, and we all showed up there a little early because we wanted to leave time to get into makeup. From the second we walked in, things were different from what we were used to. First of all, we were accustomed to doing our own makeup, but they had hired someone to do it for us. That's why Peter's makeup is completely different on that first album from what it eventually became. But that was only a minor hiccup. Once we were all made up, Brodsky put us in front of the camera and then draped a black cloth over us so you could only see our heads. That was intentional. It was what we call the Meet the Beatles effect, just 4 heads coming out of the darkness. Then Brodsky asked us who wanted to hold the balloons. We didn't understand until he explained his concept. "I get it," he said. "You're clowns. I'll go get the balloons." It took us a while to explain to him that we were completely serious. It's easy to see why he was confused. Up until that point, you didn't have popular bands coming out with makeup on. Alice Cooper was a frontman in makeup, and obscure bands like Roy Wood's Wizard and Crazy World of Arthur Brown wore makeup. But to have a real rock band with 4 guys, all of them in makeup, was unprecedented. It didn't have as much in common with rock and roll as it did with the movies or Las Vegas. But we convinced Joel Brodsky that we were serious.
That's the music of an exciting new group called Just Kiss. Probably the most unique group on stage that I've seen, well, since the first time I saw Alice Cooper, and now I'm not making any comparisons. Kiss is not anything like Alice, but I just use that in terms of being different, and boy, they are different. And we have 50% of Kiss in the studio. It's a half a Kiss. Peter and Paul. And I'm not going to ask you where's Mary, because there ain't no Mary. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me, why Kiss? Why not hug or smooch or squeeze?
Well, Paul came up with the name Kiss, so he could explain it better than I can.
Paul, you're on.
It's a simple name. It's very direct. And our music tends to be very direct and right out front. And rather than go for a name like the Psychedelic Swamis or something like that.
That's not old bad. You got mine.
Kiss also is usually like the start of something.
Yeah.
It's usually the start of something good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
A deep kiss. Good
Yeah.
kiss.
Good kiss. Well, all right. I'm pleased. And the concept of Kiss, of course, is so different. And that's, what I've been wanting to ask you all along. I mean, whose idea was the kind of presentation that you do?
We all had the idea, we worked together. I always wanted to be in a group with makeup and flash, and to give people more than just a show. Like Paul always used to say, if you want to listen to music, you go home and put on a record. But today it's more than just listening. You got to see the music and feel it and all. And I put an ad in the paper a long time ago, and I got this crazy call from the bass player Gene. And he goes, hello? I said, hi. And he goes, are you skinny? And I said, yeah, I'm all right. I'm thin. He goes, do you have long hair? I said, yeah. Do you have a beard? I said, no. Would you like to wear makeup? Would you do anything? Would you wear a dress on stage? All this insanity. And I said, yeah, I'd do anything to make it. I'll, anything. And he goes, well, come on down. And then I met Gene and Paul.
I want to hear what the ad was, but I want everybody to hear another cut from the album. Folks, this is Kiss. Now tell me again, Peter, what was the ad that you put in the paper that you got that?
You read them in the paper all the time. Drummers seeking original group, willing to do anything to make it. Rock and roll, blah blah blah.
Right.
Peter Chris.
And so who answered it?
Gene or Paul. I don't know.
Gene.
They picked it up.
We would buy the papers. We were really desperate, because Gene and I knew what we wanted. So we'd go through the paper and
call everybody up that was listed and usually preface the call with, "Do you have a beard?" You know.
In
Was
other
that
words,
the first drummer? Yeah. First
so in other words, you had the idea of doing the makeup and
Well, we had the idea, but in order to make it work and in order to make it a group concept, you had to find people
Who were into it.
who would do it naturally without being pushed.
I see. In other words, that really enjoyed the whole.
Yeah, you know,
yeah.
it should be something that didn't have to be forced upon anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Who conceived the specific makeup that you all wear?
each one of us.
In other words, you all designed your own.
Yeah.
Did it require a lot of practice and?
Yeah, and it took time, right? And we didn't start off with it. We just kept building on it like
Because that pussycat nose is just super on Peter. And, well, of course, this is all hard to conceive when you hear it in conversation. But the guys in Kiss are made up. I'm not talking about glitter rock or transvestite stuff. I mean, just very theatrical and very interesting and exciting makeups that you might see in a Japanese play.
Yeah,
you know.
similar to that.
Yes,
sure.
very much so, and of course they all have great long hair, and it's just visual, just adds to the visual excitement of what the group does, and while your eyes are being treated, your ears are already going bananas from the sound. And we have 50% of Kiss in the studio. We have Gene and Ace. And Gene, this is a whole new venture. I mean, not only is the group new, but it's a brand new label too, isn't it?
Casablanca is the name of the label. And Neil Bogart is the man responsible for it.
Does he have any kind of tag, for instance, for Kiss's music? I mean, what do you call Kiss as far as music? If you really had to...
People have used terms like thunder rock.
Thunder rock?
Yeah.
Hey, I like that. I haven't heard that one before.
And I really don't think it's a good idea to coin, the kind of music that we're doing. It's hard. It's hard-edged. I think it's also easily accessible music. They all have hooks. It's the kind of stuff that pretty much you can sing along with and dance. They're all in the single range, whatever. They're like 3-minute songs. If anything, then I would guess thunder rock.
Yeah, they're not the Moody Blues folks.
No.
No. Ace, you were originally with the original group too, weren't you?
I was the last member to join.
The last member. And did they get you through an ad in the paper too?
Well, I saw their ad. They had an ad for a lead guitarist, and
One with long hair, skinny, that wore makeup.
yeah, the bass. And what happened was they tried out about 50 guitarists, and they decided on me.
I wonder why.
I was very happy about the whole thing.
Getting back, Paul, to Gene, to the instrumentation. Isn't it unusual you have nothing but guitars?
It's really classic instrumentation. We go back to, keeping with what we have in mind of keeping the music easily accessible. The easiest thing would have been to go out and spend $3,000 on a Moog synthesizer and then turn up the volume and, but we try to keep everything so that it's easily workable, so that people don't have to work at sitting in their seats and try to figure out what we're doing. Our instrumentation is in a classic Beatle mold, although I don't really think we have that much to do with the Beatles as such. 2 guitars, bass, and drums. A lead guitarist, a rhythm guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer. And all 4 of us sing, all 4 of us write.
After seeing the group, I've seen the group now 3 times, and on the 3rd time around, I really realized, which I hadn't the first 2 times, what good voices you all have. I mean, really good, fine voices. Have you had voice training?
I don't think so, no.
None of them?
It would be, no.
You
None
couldn't?
None of us have, we've had art training.
Yeah.
A couple of the people in the band are designers or whatever. The logo was designed by Ace.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
You'll notice the S's are a bit different.
Yes, and that's what makes it so unique and looks so good in rhinestones, too. I should have worn mine today. Now, as I mentioned before, the group's unique, and I'm trying not to tip, what happens on stage, because I like everybody to go and see the group, and they will be on tour, and see what they do. But we might give away a little of it, because I have to know, with all the odd, weird things that go on in the course of of the presentation. I imagine there have been some foul-ups.
Sometimes it happens.
What's the funniest thing that's happened to you so far with all your gimmicks?
The weirdest thing, I guess, that ever happened to us was very prophetically on our first coming out, as it were, New Year's Eve, 1973-74. We did our first professional gig with Blue Oyster Cult and some other nice people, and I don't know if people are aware of it, but I do a fire breathing thing during one of the songs, and the whole side of my head caught fire.
I heard about that. I
Yes,
didn't see
that
it.
was, I wasn't even aware of it at the time, if it wasn't for Sean Delaney.
How'd
God
you put
bless
it
him.
out?
I didn't even know about it.
One
No,
of those
Sean
things.
just ran off stage and smothered me with his coat. And I guess it just went out. I didn't even know about it. At the end of the thing, Rick Derringer and some of his people came over and said, "Why does the bass player, put his hair on fire? He doesn't have to go
It's a
that
great
far."
act.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they thought it was part of the act.
That would be kind of expensive. You'd be bald in about 6 weeks
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you could last that long.
On February the 18th, the debut album was released, and Neil Bogart of Casablanca Records organised a launch party.
Once our stage act was refined by the short tour, we were ready for our first big industry showcase, which was happening out in Los Angeles. Neil flew us out west and rented us cars, and for a little while we soaked up California. The showcase would happen at the Century Plaza Hotel. Neil had packed the place with record executives and businessmen. They weren't sure what to expect, but it's fair to say that they weren't expecting Kiss.
Neil got up on stage and introduced us, and we started playing. Before we finished our first song, everybody cleared out of the ballroom. Too loud and too garish, they complained. Hey, we weren't the Eagles. No comfortable volume or songs about being desperate in the desert. We were East Coast, proud of it, and thought the whole West Coast cowboy thing was a bit of a joke. I felt an odd sense of pride at having scared off these people. What did we care if they didn't like us? They weren't our type either. Alice Cooper came to the event that night too. Afterwards he joked, "What you guys need is a gimmick."
The album's track listing contains many songs that the band would continue to play during their 5 decades-long career. Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, Let Me Know, Juice, Love Theme from Kiss, which was an excerpt from their song Acrobat, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond. But the public's reaction was quiet. Too quiet. There was no rush to radio, no sudden surge of validation. Critics didn't know what to do with them. Some dismissed the band outright. Others treated the makeup like a novelty that would burn out quickly.
The first Kiss record people love. It got very good reviews. Still people love it to this day. But it still didn't get a huge amount of coverage, or it didn't sell a tremendous amount way back when it was released.
We weren't mainstream.
No, yeah.
We were pretty radical for,
Yeah,
for the early 70s.
The get-up was very strange back then, of
It
course.
took a while for the momentum to catch on, but
Inside the band there was disappointment, but not panic. Neil Bogart had always understood that Kiss weren't built for subtlety. The record wasn't the point, the experience was, and if the album didn't explode, then the band would have to.
We're Kiss. We want everybody here to come along with us. You got nothing to lose.
On February the 21st, Kiss were invited to ABC Studios to record their first TV appearance, the infamous In-Concert Showcase. They performed 3 songs, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse and Black Diamond. It was the band's first ever time appearing on national television.
Dick Clark had expanded beyond American Bandstand and had a show called In Concert that featured 3 different bands playing a few songs live on each episode. The format suited us, just us doing what we did, and it felt like another milestone. A network television show hosted by Dick Clark, no less. Dick came to our dressing room when we arrived to get ready for the performance. I learned over time that a lot of people in similar positions weren't nearly as cordial as he was. Bill Graham, for instance, a highly respected promoter who ran the Fillmore in Winterland, was anything but nice to us when we first met him a few months later. But Dick was special, and when I shook his hand, all I could think was, that's Dick fucking Clark. For all those years he had been an inspiration to me as a kid, he had seemed as fantastical as Superman, but no, Dick Clark really existed. We set up on a revolving stage and a band called Redbone played before us. Then the stage turned and the dim lighting suddenly became bright stage lighting. There we were in front of the cameras, but we were a machine by that point and we played ferociously wherever we were. We felt good about the performance. We didn't see it until 6 weeks later when we hurried back to a motel after a concert in Asbury Park, New Jersey to watch the broadcast on a crappy TV.
The other guests that night were Kool and the Gang and Melissa Manchester. That gives you some idea of how eclectic the rock and roll scene was at that time. There may have been bands who, before playing on these TV shows, mingled with the other bands and made friends. We weren't one of them. For starters, we were defiantly out of step with the times. The other thing that set us apart, though, was our makeup. We had to apply it ourselves, and it took a few hours. So the ritual of getting ready for the show actually prevented us from having much contact with the other bands. While we were getting ready for the show, Dick Clark came backstage to say hello to us. He shook our hands and wished us luck. To this day, he remains one of the classiest people I have ever met in the record business. I can't tell you how gratifying it was to be a young band and have Dick Clark treat us with respect. Paul and I have talked about that occasionally over the years, and it's been kind of a guide for us, especially in dealing with our fans. We try never to be rude, never to turn away kids looking for autographs. Being polite backstage, though, didn't mean that we weren't going to tear the roof off the place when we finally got on stage. The show was absolutely wild. At one point, I went right at the cameraman while breathing fire, and on TV all you could see is my face approaching and then the ceiling because the cameraman jumped off his platform and ran. We didn't see the show until 2 months later. By that time, we were back on tour in Asbury Park, New Jersey. After the show, we'd gone back to the motel to change before heading out for the night. Someone turned on the TV set, and there we were, on national television.
March 23rd was a significant date for the band, with it being the first time that Gene Simmons performed his blood spitting on stage at the Academy of Music in New York City during the band's performance of 100,000 Years. It wasn't planned mythology, it was instinct, a way of saying, you can't look away from this. From that moment, the band's relationship with audiences changed. People didn't just watch Kiss anymore, they reacted to them. Some recoiled, some leaned in, but no one forgot what they'd seen. On April 24th, the band took part in an offbeat, guerrilla-style photo shoot around Central Park and other spots in New York City, with photographer Waring Abbott. The band, already known for their theatrical makeup and costumes, met up and prepared in Midtown, reportedly putting on their distinctive face paint and stage outfits at a space in 150 West 55th Street, just a couple of minutes from Carnegie Hall, before hitting the streets. During the shoot, Abbott captured them roaming the park and nearby Manhattan landmarks, making playful, provocative images, including scenes around the Central Park Zoo and the Arsenal, walking toward the 59th Street entrance, and in front of other recognizable backdrops, like areas near Wollman Rink, blending their larger-than-life personas with everyday city life and iconic urban scenery. The goal of the session wasn't to produce a formal album cover, but to have fun, stir up attention, and ruffle some feathers among unsuspecting New Yorkers, creating striking, memorable photo ops that matched the band's shock rock image and helped build buzz around them in the city where they were rapidly rising to fame. This would not be the last time Kiss had a photo shoot in various landmarks of New York City, but arguably it would be the last time they would do it and still remain unfamiliar to the public. Casablanca Records arranged for Kiss to be part of the national kissing competitions. The band recorded a cover of Kissin Time, originally by Bobby Rydell. This was included in subsequent copies of the debut album.
One of the unique things about the first album was the idea that we were going to do a kissing contest. Neil had thought up a promotion that would be unique in promoting Kiss and the name Kiss, and that was to have a kissing contest at all the major radio stations around the country. So he put up the money to promote this, the kissing contest, and then needed something on record to promote the kissing contest and needed something to promote it on radio. Came up with the idea that we would do the song Kissin Time, which had been a hit record many years before, of which none of us really wanted to do it, especially Kiss, who thought it was a little too popish and certainly wasn't their type of music. But Neil persisted, and we knew we had to go along with it. After all, this was the promotion of the first record that they had ever done. So we went back into the studio and cut Kissin Time. Kissin Time was promoted in every radio station across the country, along with the Kiss contests.
In the days before the internet, television helped, even when it confused people. Appearances brought Kiss into living rooms where they looked completely out of place. Too loud, too aggressive, too theatrical for polite programming. Some viewers changed the channel. Others stared, unsettled and curious. That reaction mattered. Indifference was the enemy. Shock was progress. And their appearance on April 29th on The Mike Douglas Show, featuring an in-demon character Gene Simmons giving an interview, has now become infamous among the fandom.
I got a new rock group for you, Tony. This is their latest album, which I'm going to show the camera right here. But before we see them perform, I want you to meet one of the members of this act close up. Here from Kiss is Gene Simmons.
Excuse me while I spread my wings.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead. Hey, can we do a close shot of the shoes, please? Look at these shoes. I mean, let's turn them this way so we can see them. That is something.
Incidentally, he's up for adoption.
I refuse, Cody.
Gene, what are you?
I'm really just a member of Kiss, you know?
Who dreamed this up, this get-up?
We all did.
How many members in the
There are
group?
4 members. You know, your audience really looks appetizing.
Oh, really? Are you a bat?
Yes. Actually, what I am is evil incarnate. And some of those cheeks and necks look really good.
What's Why the costume? Why the costume? I can tell he's your type, Tony. I can just tell.
I really like her bat formation. Open up, Tony.
Is your mother watching today? I hope so.
Yes,
Would it be funny if under this he was just a nice Jewish boy?
You should only know.
Where you?
I do. You can't hide the hook.
What is it? You had a contest recently, which I read about, a kiss contest, am I right?
Yeah.
Would you like to meet the winning couple, ladies and gentlemen? No. We have the winning couple from the first kissing marathon. They went lip to lip for 4 days, 32 hours, and 32 minutes and 3 seconds. Am I right? Here is Vinnie, is it Torg, and Louise Heath. Welcome. No kiss. These are my people. Oh, that's. Okay. How are we going to sit now? That's all right. Just put them right there. That's all right. Sit down, everybody. Now, you heard about this how?
On the radio, on WSHE in Miami.
And did you have to talk Louise into this, Vince, or did it just...
No, we felt that we were the greatest kissers in the world. We just wanted to prove it to everybody else.
Did you have any idea? Did you think you could go that long in a costume, in an outfit?
We didn't expect it to be that long at all.
Couldn't it? And the rules. Tell us the rules, Louise. What were they?
Oh, you just had to keep kissing. Your lips had to be in contact at all times. And that was the only rule. You could be in
55
any
minutes
position.
out of every hour.
Right.
Any special training for the contest?
No. Just
we practice a lot.
Louise and Vince are going to go on for the World Championship that's going to be held May 25th in Chicago, and we'd like to get Howard Cosell to do the blow-by-blow descriptions. So keep watching, folks.
Is he your man, Howard Cosell?
We'd love to get him.
What was the prize, Vince?
The prize
was a trip to Toronto to see Kiss in concert. But unfortunately, the concert canceled out.
Unfortunately, that's been canceled, but there's a bigger prize. What's happening is the winning couple, the world champs, will fly out to California, and from there, they're going on an 8-day cruise to Acapulco to recover. So it should be something.
What did you think about this whole thing, Louise? Are you pleased that you participated?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Is this your man here?
Oh, for sure.
We're very much in love.
Are you? How long have you two known each other?
About 6 months.
Oh, that's great. That's marvelous. Now, the thing in Toronto that we talked about was called off, am I right? But you never saw the group perform.
No, we haven't seen them perform.
Okay, we're going to give you a chance to see the group perform right after these messages. We'll be right back.
The following weeks were filled with more activity. Another New York photo session on April the 30th, this time with photographer Eric Stephen Jacobs. Predominantly against a white backdrop, these images are among some of the most recognisable of this era. This was followed by another publicity stunt. The band went to the highly respectable Georgette Klinger salon, where they were photographed each receiving facials and with towels on their faces, again to preserve their anonymity.
For years, we tried to protect our identity. I mean, that was our gimmick, wearing the makeup. Nobody knew what we looked like without it. I mean, I can't remember how many times Bill Aucoin told me, we paid off a photographer who had photographed us, without makeup, to squash it. And a lot of the magazines really, got pictures of us, but wouldn't print them because, they were selling so many copies of magazines with Kiss on the cover with makeup. They didn't want to, ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
So, the magazines kind of played along with us. And I think the first time a magazine printed a picture of us without makeup was Creem.
I did read the magazine back in the day. It was a magazine that did feature Kiss quite a bit, which is what my interest was when I was a kid. And it was a magazine that famously was the first to print a photo of Kiss without makeup while they were wearing makeup, while they were in their anonymous phase. Kiss went to the offices of the magazine, and of course they weren't wearing makeup just doing that. They had an agreement with people. You don't take photos of us and print them, help us out, keep the mystique, keep the whole vibe of the band going. And then a photographer grabbed them in the back alley out of makeup and said, hey, well, let me just shoot off a few photos. We won't do anything with these. And of course, the band, being naive and very young at that time, trusted this person and shot photos of them. And then the magazine ran the photos. And I remember, so to me, when it comes to Creem magazine, that is the biggest thing I remember being such a big Kiss fan, because at the time, there was this black and white photo, and the magazine was very sort of sarcastic in their tone about everything. They would always be like, you know, sort of backhanded compliments, what I remember, because I remember that the magazine ran the photo, and in the headline said something like, we have the first ever photo of Kiss without makeup, or if you don't care, why should we? Or something like that, like sort of a weird backhanded compliment. And they ran the photo. And I remember all of us as Kiss fans back then, because again, this was the time of the great mystique of Kiss, the original band. Nobody knew what they looked like. We would all look at that photo and analyze it and try to figure out if it was really, truly them or not. Or the magazine just looking to get some publicity. Because that happened a lot too. There were pictures back in the day of guys from the band The Babies that were ran in like the New York City newspapers. Allegedly, this is really Paul Stanley and he's actually in The Babies. I said this on Twitter a couple days ago. Unless you grew up with Kiss in the 70s like I did, you can't now understand the mystique that went on. There was a whole nother thing above and beyond just the rock band. It was this whole thing about who they really are, who are they under the makeup, because it was all kept a secret. I mean, it was just brilliant marketing. And because there had been photos that ran prior that were not really Kiss, the thought when Creem magazine posted this photo is, well, it's just another magazine posting a photo that's not really Kiss, saying it's them, to get publicity. In this instance, it really was Kiss, but they didn't really get damaged by it because as fans, we weren't sure if it was legit or not. So it just created more controversy, and it turned out that one actually was legit in retrospect.
On May the 11th, Kiss made an appearance at a record store in Detroit. This was also the venue for one of the preliminary rounds of the kissing contest. And whilst visiting Los Angeles on the tour, Paul Stanley got his now infamous rose tattoo.
Walking around one morning after breakfast, I noticed Lyle Tuttle's tattoo parlor on Sunset Boulevard. I walked in. I decided I would get one tattoo. I swore to myself that it would be one, just one, for life. I knew I didn't want a skull with a top hat or a battleship or mom, so I settled on a rose on my shoulder. Back at the hotel with my new ink, I called home. I was excited and also wanted to ruffle my parents' feathers, I guess. Guess what, Mom? I just got a tattoo. Oh, Stan, my mother said, referring to a Jewish cultural taboo. Now you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. Cut my arm off, Mom. It's not going to matter to me.
On June the 8th, it was the National Kiss-Off, the final of the kissing contest. Kiss attended the event, which was held at Woodfield Shopping Center in Schaumburg, Illinois. Casablanca Records had invested a lot on this contest. It began at midday, and 11 couples competed. The prize was an 8-day cruise to Acapulco, and being recognized in a coveted spot in the Guinness Book of Records. Vinnie Toro and Louise Heath from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who joined Simmons on the Mike Douglas Show, were crowned the winners after kissing for 114 hours and 1 minute after the second place couple dropped out. Toro and Heath had a friend that had recently lost their home in a fire, and instead of the cruise opted for a $1,000 cash alternative, which they donated to the friend. WCFL, the radio station sponsoring the contest, was so touched by this generosity that they still honoured the couple with a cruise. The contest also raised $5,000 for a Tennessee Children's Hospital.
The kissing contest turned out to be very successful. We're not sure how much it promoted Kiss, but it certainly got enough kissing contests around the country so that the radio stations knew who Casablanca was, which enabled us to get some airplay. But most radio stations didn't like the idea of Kiss, their songs, or their makeup.
As the months moved forward, Kiss began to understand that escalation wasn't optional. If they were going to survive, they had to push further than anyone expected. Spring brought contradictions. Casablanca wanted accessibility, singles that might crack radio, promotions that softened the edges just enough to let new listeners in. Kiss played along even when it felt uncomfortable. They understood the chessboard. Survival sometimes meant compromise, but never surrender. The absurdity became part of the act. Kissing contests, daytime television, appearances that felt surreal, even to the band themselves. Middle America didn't know what to do with Kiss, and Kiss didn't try to explain themselves. They trusted that the right people would find them eventually, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, that began to happen.
Oh, really have a great time.
Out front, it's all sequins and lights, massed amplifiers and bass speakers. Sound so loud that it's on the very threshold of pain. Undecipherable lyrics, bestial costumes, switchy movements, elaborate choreography, shooting flames and levitating drums. Backstage, it's all sweat, smell, and spilled beer.
An audience can sense sincerity. And if we were up there trying to put one over on the audience, they would be aware of it. You know, you can't fake sweating, and you can't fake exhaustion. And we're both, you know, drenched and exhausted when we go off, and it's for the audience.
You can probably smell us right now.
If someone pays $6 to see me, I'm not doing them a favor playing for them. I owe them $6 worth of music at least. I owe them a show. I owe them good music. I owe them something to look at.
Dun, 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 dun. And we all get up.
The bass is physically felt within the stomach. The sound is so loud that it borders on the threshold of pain. The beat is simple and overpowering. The lyrics, where one can distinguish them, full of homosexual innuendo. Seeks its own distinct thing. Kiss, met on the streets of New York a year or so ago, play at being monsters. They stagger and lurch about the stage as if hell had been taken over by a motorcycle gang in black leather jackets and bat feet.
Detroit was a turning point. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was honest. The crowds didn't laugh, they listened. They leaned forward. The band felt it immediately. This city understood them. From there, the connection spread through magazines that didn't sneer at the chaos but celebrated it. Creem didn't treat Kiss like a joke or a gimmick. They treated them like a necessary disturbance. By early summer, the band had found something more valuable than airplay: their people. Fans didn't just show up anymore, they participated. They dressed like the band, they argued with critics, they followed the tour. Kiss wasn't yet a product, but it was becoming a community. The tour itself was punishing. Endless drives, broken equipment, sound systems that failed nightly. Some shows felt triumphant, others felt like shouting into the void. But Kiss played every night as if someone important might be watching, even when no one was. That mindset carried them into the next record. The recording of Hotter Than Hell was marked by speed, tension, and a kind of barely controlled chaos that mirrored the band's life on the road in mid-1974. Casablanca Records wanted a second album quickly to keep momentum going, so Kiss travelled to the Village Studio in Los Angeles, reunited with producers Richie Wise and Kenny Kerner, and worked at a relentless pace, often cutting tracks in just a few takes. The band was still essentially a live act, more comfortable blasting songs out at stage volume than carefully constructing them in a studio environment, and that urgency defined the sessions. The studio itself was notoriously hot and poorly ventilated, which only added to the exhaustion and the hazy, almost suffocating sound that would later become one of the album's most criticised and defended qualities. As with the first album, this album contained many tracks that would go on to be included in their setlist for decades to come. Got to Choose, Parasite, an Ace-penned track sung by Simmons, Goin' Blind, a curious ballad depicting a love affair between a very young girl and a man in his 90s, originally titled Little Lady, the title track Hotter Than Hell, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, All the Way, Watching You, Mainline, Coming Home, and Strange Ways. One of the most frequently told stories from the sessions involves Peter Criss recording his vocal for Mainline. Determined to get the right performance, Paul Stanley, the song's composer, stood directly over him as Peter sung the lyrics. Peter, for his part, later recalled the sessions as intimidating. Ace Frehley, meanwhile, brought his own unpredictable energy into the room. During the recording of Strange Ways, Ace reportedly encouraged Peter to experiment vocally and emotionally, emphasising the song's darker, moodier feel. Peter's lead vocal on the track, one of the standout moments on Hotter Than Hell, reflected that atmosphere, sounding more vulnerable and haunted than much of the band's earlier material. Ace's loose, often intuitive approach contrasted with Paul's precision and Gene's theatrical intent, but that friction helped define the album's character. Other stories from the sessions highlight how little time there was for second guessing. Guitar tones were dialed in quickly, vocals were often accepted if they captured the right feel, and overdubs were kept to a minimum. Richie Wise later described the album as a snapshot rather than a sculpture, an attempt to bottle the band exactly as they were at that moment, sweat, imperfections and all. While the muddy mix would later frustrate the band, especially Paul Stanley, Hotter Than Hell preserved the sound of Kiss under pressure, tired, driven, slightly out of control, and absolutely unwilling to slow down. The sessions for Hotter Than Hell were fast, sweaty and unforgiving. There was no time for polish. Producers Richie Wise and Kenny Kerner didn't try to tame the band, they tried to capture it before it burned itself out. The sound was darker, heavier, closer to what Kiss actually were on stage. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Then reality struck hard. Ace Frehley's car crash was a shock that cut through the momentum. For a moment, everything stopped. The fantasy cracked. The band was reminded how fragile this all was, how easily the dream could end without warning. Ace survived, the band exhaled, and then they kept going, because stopping felt more dangerous than continuing. Kiss had another photo shoot scheduled, but due to Ace's facial injuries, he was only able to wear partial makeup, resulting in clever positioning and post-production editing, all before the days of Photoshop.
I mean, the first, when you mention Hotter Than Hell, the first thing that comes to mind is the cover, because it was so revolutionary.
Yeah.
We got one of the best photographers in California, Norman Seif, to shoot the black and white photo session, and I had gotten into a car accident the night before, and I could only put makeup on half my face. Or maybe that was a photo session following the album cover. But working with Norman was great, and I believe he came up with the Japanese artwork idea around the black and white photo, and I thought the cover was very distinctive looking and wasn't reminiscent of anything I remember seeing.
When Hotter Than Hell was released in the fall, the reaction mirrored the band's year so far. Mixed, confused, but inching forward. Critics complained about the sound. Some listeners struggled with its rawness. but others heard something closer to the truth. Kiss sounded dangerous, less theatrical, more physical. The album didn't break them into the mainstream, but it moved the line. Promoters took more chances, crowds grew thicker, the band could feel it. Even before the album had time to settle, Kiss were already thinking ahead. Photo sessions followed almost immediately, including the now famous Dressed to Kill shoot. 4 men in business suits standing on a New York street, makeup intact, staring down the camera. It was a visual reset, still confrontational, but sharper, smarter. The image suggested confidence, control, and intent, as if the band were daring the industry to take them seriously on their terms.
We didn't have suits. We raided Bill Aucoin's closet. None of us had suits. You know, we were getting paid $75 a week or something. You know, we really hadn't made it yet.
As fall approached, momentum finally began to match effort. Television appearances landed differently now. Radio cracks widened. DJs like Alison Steele didn't just tolerate the band, they championed them. When Hotter Than Hell arrived, it didn't explode, but it advanced the line. Kiss sounded tougher, meaner, more certain of themselves. The mixed reaction mirrored the band's year so far. Mixed, confused, but inching forward. Critics complained about the sound. Some listeners struggled with its rawness, but others heard something closer to the truth. Kiss sounded dangerous. Less theatrical, more physical. The album didn't break them into the mainstream, but it moved the line. Promoters took more chances, crowds grew thicker, and the band could feel it. Even before the album had time to settle, Kiss were already thinking ahead. And then suddenly, out of the blue, something happened that mattered more than any review. The Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis on November the 7th, with T-Rex as their support, was the band's first sold-out show. Not hype, not promotion, not curiosity. Proof. Proof that Kiss were on their way up. By the end of the year, exhaustion caught up with everyone. Long months of adrenaline took their toll. Even strange, almost comic moments, like Gene Simmons being accidentally stoned, felt like symptoms of a year lived at maximum speed with no margin for rest. But when 1974 closed, Kiss was still standing. They weren't stars yet. They weren't safe. They weren't universally accepted. But they were durable. They had learned how to survive indifference. How to turn rejection into fuel. How to keep moving when belief was the only thing left in the tank. 1974 didn't make Kiss famous. It made it possible for them to become famous. And that made all the difference. Hello, it's me, the voice. I'm not AI. I just want to say a quick thank you if you've made it this far in the documentary. Part 3 will be out as soon as possible. I've already started work on it. And I really appreciate your support on this channel, watching these Kiss videos I do. Don't forget, I'll put a Kiss video out pretty much every Friday, sometimes more than that as well as other bits and pieces I've got going on. I've just been monetized, so again, thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. Hit that alarm bell and all that other stuff, and like the video, send me a comment, let me know what you think, all the other stuff you have to do. If you are feeling generous, there is a link to my Patreon in the description as well. No obligation, but if you do feel like helping out a small channel, I'll be very, very grateful. And once I start getting some numbers on there, I'll start doing like exclusive content for Patreon as well. But anyway, just wanted to say thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed the documentary. Can't wait to see you in part 3.